A Formula 1 race can be won or lost in a single pit stop. For a few brief moments during every Grand Prix, the race outcome hinges not on the driver and his car, but on about 20 mechanics working in flawless harmony to change tyres in under 2 seconds. However, a pit stop is much more than just a quick tyre change. It's a critical element of race strategy and execution that can significantly impact a driver's chances of victory. An expertly timed and flawlessly executed pit stop can catapult a driver ahead of a rival, while a poorly handled one can spell disaster, causing precious seconds to slip away and positions to be lost. But exactly how does a pit stop affect the outcome of a race? Let's find out. Back in the pre-1950s era of racing, pit stops were a far cry from the orchestrated sprints we witness now. The concept of a dedicated pit lane didn't even exist. Mechanics worked on the car right next to the track, dodging speeding vehicles. Tyre changes were not even a thing back then. Drivers raced on the same set of tyres for the entire event, focusing more on enduring the race than strategizing pit stops. Around 1957, the strategic importance of pit stops began to emerge. Ferrari pioneered this approach when their driver ran on softer compound tyres and with a half-full tank, gaining a substantial 30-second lead before needing to refuel. By the 1970s, despite many advancements in Formula 1, pit stops were still inefficient, with only a few mechanics servicing the cars. The 1980s marked a turning point as teams recognised that every fraction of a second mattered. Investment in better procedures and equipment transformed pit stops into a critical element of race strategy. Safety measures also improved, enhancing pit crew training and coordination. The 1990s saw pit stops become even faster, often taking around 5 seconds. However, safety became a priority after incidents like Jos Verstappen's 1994 refueling fire at the Hockenheim Grand Prix, leading to the introduction of pit lane speed limits and stricter safety protocols. A major shift occurred in 2010 when refueling during races was banned, making pit stops safer and quicker. Teams now focus solely on tyre changes, leading to incredibly fast stops. Today, modern Formula 1 pit stops often take just about 2 seconds thanks to advanced technology and refined techniques. The fastest pit stop on record was made by McLaren at the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix, changing Lando Norris's tyres in just 1.8 seconds. However, a great pit stop isn't just about speed. It's about precision and avoiding mistakes. A top pit crew can change all 4 tyres in about 2 seconds, but the real challenge is to avoid errors. If a tyre isn't correctly attached, the consequences can be severe. If the crew catches the mistake in time, the car will be held longer in the box, costing precious seconds and likely track position. If the car leaves with a loose tyre and stops in the pit lane or makes it back to the track, it will incur an unsafe release penalty, which is at least a 10-second stop and go penalty, with the possibility of a grid penalty at the next race. In the worst case, the wheel detaches completely, forcing the car to retire. A mistake in the garage can be devastating. Take, for instance, the 2016 Monaco Grand Prix. Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo entered the pits in pole position, but his team didn't have his tyres ready. Ricciardo sat in the pit lane as precious seconds ticked away, losing his lead to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton went on to win the race, while Ricciardo felt he'd been screwed by his team. At the 2018 Spanish Grand Prix, Valtteri Bottas experienced a slow 3-second pit stop that cost him a potential second-place finish against Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel. Had Bottas' stop been the usual 2-second duration, he would have rejoined the race ahead of Vettel. Instead, he emerged just behind and had to battle Vettel on the track. These scenarios highlight how modern F1 pit stops are pivotal for strategic advantage. They're about much more than merely swapping tyres. In the Bottas instance, Mercedes and Bottas were attempting an overcut. Vettel, who was running second, pitted on lap 17, rejoining about 20 seconds behind Bottas. With Vettel out of the way, Bottas had the opportunity to race in clean air. For 2 laps, Bottas' race engineer urged him to push as hard as possible before making his own pit stop. As the Mercedes was faster, Bottas managed to lap 0.6 seconds quicker than he'd been behind Vettel, gaining a 1.2 second advantage overall. This should have allowed Bottas to pit and return to the track in second place. However, a slight delay in changing his right rear tyre erased his advantage, keeping him in third place. Conversely, there's the undercut strategy. Here, a faster driver stuck behind a slightly slower car, but not slow enough to pass on track, will pit first. Then, he will switch tyres and return to the track in clean air. The driver then sprints for a couple of laps, aiming to gain enough time so that when the rival pits, the faster driver emerges ahead. To avoid such catastrophic errors like what happened to Ricciardo and Bottas, teams drill their pit stop until they're second nature. During a typical Grand Prix weekend, about 60 practice pit stops are done. On Thursday, around 20 stops are practiced, with crew members swapping roles to ensure versatility. On Friday morning, another 15 stops are practiced, with more opportunities during practice sessions. Saturday morning sees around 20 more stops, and a few are done on Sunday morning too. Crews also practice unusual situations like changing a nose or using spare wheel guns. Every detail is planned, including where each crew member sits in the garage, to avoid collisions and ensure everyone knows their route. The idea is to make the process so ingrained that it becomes almost instinctual. By practicing for the most complex scenarios, teams aim to make the actual race day pit stops as smooth and routine as possible. After each practice session, teams meticulously review video footage and data from the car and equipment to find areas for improvement. They analyse how long each task takes, from gunning the wheel nuts to lifting and dropping the jacks. In the early days of Formula 1, gunners would raise their hands to signal that the nuts were secure. Today, automation has streamlined the process. When the last gunner presses a completion switch, the jacks automatically lower and a green light signals the driver to go. In recent years, teams have turned to biometrics to understand how their pit crews perform under pressure. By monitoring heart rates, recovery times, breathing rates, and core temperatures, teams tailor training to each crew member's needs. The detailed analysis helps determine who thrives under the stress of a pit stop and who might struggle, allowing teams to provide targeted support. Understanding the psychological state of each crew member is just as crucial as the physical training. For some, the adrenaline of high-pressure pit stops enhances their performance, while for others, it can be overwhelming. Today, technology has revolutionized pit stop strategy in Formula 1. Real-time data analysis and advanced simulations allow teams to fine-tune their tactics in ways that were previously unimaginable. Telemetry data collected from cars during races provides invaluable insights, enabling teams to make data-driven decisions. Additionally, machine learning algorithms analyze vast amounts of historic data to identify patterns and trends, helping engineers craft more sophisticated and effective pit stop strategies. When teams arrive at a race, they almost certainly have a pit stop strategy meticulously planned out. However, the unpredictable nature of racing means they must adapt on the fly. Factors like safety car deployments, sudden weather changes, or unexpected overtaking opportunities can all influence the timing of pit stops. Race engineers and strategists need to stay sharp, constantly monitoring those variables and making split-second decisions to optimize their team's performance. But it's not just the engineers who play a role in perfecting pit stops. Drivers also have a significant impact on pit stop performance. Achieving near superhuman reaction times requires constant practice, but drivers can make their pit crew's job easier with precise actions. First of all, drivers must brake accurately to the speed limiter line. Ideally, they maintain a stable speed for a tenth of a second or two as they cross the marker. Braking too early means they'll have to accelerate again, while braking too late means the car won't slow down enough in time. The difference between a driver who smoothly enters the box without locking the tyres and one who locks up and stops long can be significant. For instance, stopping just 30 centimeters too long can cost up to 0.8 of a second. When a car stops off its marks in any direction, even by a small margin, the entire pit crew has to adjust their positions, costing precious time. The worst case scenario is when the car stops too far forward, just 30 centimeters, which might seem like a minor error, can be significant given the reach of a human arm. For example, the gunmen who need to remove and replace the wheel nuts find the wheel nuts physically further away from their natural reach. In extreme cases, they have to drop their tools, shuffle along on their knees, reposition the gun, and then reconnect to the nut. Well, that will be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can always watch more amazing videos like this. See you in the next video.